For centuries, the galaxy had moved on, believing Earth was a quiet, insignificant planet. The Galactic Council often discussed distant worlds, new discoveries, and emerging civilizations, but Earth never came up. To most species, humans were either extinct or too primitive to matter. Few remembered the old reports' ancient tales of explorers who had once reached Earth and vanished mysteriously. Those stories were buried, forgotten, and ignored, but not everyone had forgotten. Among the older members of the Council, there were whispers. They remembered the truth, the incident that had been erased from official records. Long ago, humans had dared to reach out to other worlds. They had built simple spacecraft and traveled into space with hope and curiosity. They were explorers, eager to learn and to share. But the first contact was met with suspicion and hostility. Instead of welcoming the humans, some of the Council species attacked them. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act, a way to contain a rising species they did not understand. The humans disappeared from history, their efforts erased, their presence silenced. Now, centuries later, something was stirring. Strange signals, faint and intermittent, began reaching the edges of Council space. No one knew where they were coming from at first. They were subtle, almost like whispers in the void, yet impossible to ignore. Scouts were sent to investigate, but even as the ships searched, the signals seemed to vanish. The Council was curious, yet uneasy. For a planet long considered irrelevant, Earth was suddenly drawing attention in a way no one could predict. The story of Earth's silence became a topic of secret debate. Why had the planet remained isolated for so long? Was it fear or something else? The older members, those who remembered the first explorers, feared the answer. They knew that humans were not a species to be underestimated. Even in the past, they had shown resilience, intelligence, and creativity beyond what many had anticipated. If they had survived and grown, the galaxy might be in for a surprise unlike anything it had ever seen. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, life went on quietly. Humans did not rush to the stars after the attack. They did not demand revenge. Instead, they focused on survival, on learning, on strengthening their world in ways no one else could see. Cities expanded, technology evolved, and knowledge grew silently beneath the surface. Every obstacle became a lesson, every failure a step forward. Humans had always been resourceful, and they had learned to adapt to challenges the galaxy could hardly imagine. From the perspective of the Galactic Council, Earth was still a mystery. Some members argued it was time to re-establish contact, to see what had become of the planet. Others warned against it, fearful of the unknown. A few, with memory of the past, suggested caution. The old stories were enough to make even the most confident leaders uneasy. Humans had been underestimated once. Could they be underestimated again? As the debate continued, the signals grew stronger. They were not random. There was a pattern, a rhythm, as if the planet itself was sending a message. The Council struggled to interpret it. What did it mean? Was it a warning, an invitation, or something else entirely? The uncertainty made everyone uneasy, and for the first time in centuries, Earth was the focus of intense scrutiny. Unknown to the Council, the humans were watching too, not the Council itself, but the galaxy. They had always observed, always measured the stars, and always prepared. Their long silence was not emptiness. It was strategy. Humans were patient, methodical, and careful. They waited for the right moment, a time when they could step into the wider galaxy not as naive explorers, but as a civilization that had endured, learned, and grown stronger. And now that moment was approaching. The signals were just the beginning, the first hint that humans were returning. From a distance, it might have seemed quiet, unassuming. But those who knew the truth understood that Earth was no longer just a backwater planet. It had endured centuries of isolation, survived attacks meant to destroy it, and emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy was about to discover that silence could be deceiving, and patience could become power. The older members of the council exchanged worried glances. They remembered the past, the human explorers who had once reached out with hope, only to be betrayed. And now the humans were coming back. The question was not whether they would act, but how. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth's story was far from over, and that the species it had underestimated could surprise them all in ways they were not ready to face. In the quiet of the council chambers, a sense of anticipation grew. For centuries, humans had been absent, silent, and seemingly powerless. But history had taught the galaxy a valuable lesson. Never underestimate those who survive against all odds. The first part of Earth's story was ending, and the next chapter, the chapter of its return, was about to begin. After centuries of silence, Earth was about to make its presence known again. The galaxy had almost forgotten about humans, considering them a minor species at best. But now, strange readings began appearing at the edge of known space. At first, it was a faint disturbance in the sensors, almost like a ripple in the vast emptiness of the cosmos. Scientists and explorers from various species noticed it, puzzled and curious. What could it be? Scout ships were dispatched to investigate the source of these signals. They traveled for weeks, scanning every star system, every empty stretch of space. Yet nothing was there, at least nothing that could be seen. The signals were clever, almost intelligent in their pattern. They seemed to move, almost as if they were testing the galaxy, observing how others reacted. No one could explain it, and that made the council uneasy. Then, suddenly, the mystery ended in a way no one could have imagined. Without warning, a massive object appeared at the edge of council space. It was enormous, unlike any spaceship the galaxy had ever seen. Its shape was sleek, powerful, and carefully designed for both speed and endurance. It moved with precision, as if guided by a mind that understood the stars better than any alien species present. On board, humans were calm. They had traveled far and wide, not out of conquest, but to observe and prepare. Unlike other species, who often relied on flashy displays or overwhelming force, humans moved with quiet confidence. Their technology was advanced, yes, but more importantly, their discipline and coordination were evident in every action. Every member of the crew knew their role. Every system operated in harmony, and every step was calculated. When the council finally realized what had arrived, shock spread like wildfire. Humans were not just back. They had returned with strength, knowledge, and control that no one had predicted. The very idea that Earth had survived in isolation for so long, and not only survived but thrived, was almost impossible for the council members to comprehend. The first human envoys emerged from the massive vessel. They did not carry weapons, they did not make threats, and they did not demand attention. Instead, they presented themselves with dignity, politeness, and calm authority. Their presence alone commanded respect, a simple reminder that humans had endured countless challenges and emerged wiser, stronger, and united. The council had expected aggression or arrogance, but the humans offered none. They offered only their presence, and that presence carried more weight than any fleet or weapon could dot as the humans spoke. Their message was clear. Earth had been silent, not because it was weak, but because it had been observing, learning, and growing. They had waited for the right time to step back into the galaxy, to make contact with precision and clarity, and to remind the council that the planet they had once dismissed was no longer a minor player. The calm tone of their message belied the immense power behind it. The council could feel it. This was not an empty gesture. Humans had endured the impossible, and now they were here. Panic, confusion, and curiosity spread among the council members. Some species rushed to send messages, others argued over protocol, and a few older members simply observed in silence, remembering the warnings from centuries ago. The humans had returned not just as survivors, but as a testament to persistence, resilience, and the enduring spirit of their species. Their presence alone challenged the assumptions of an entire galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, the story was different. Leaders and scientists had worked together for generations, preparing not for revenge, but for survival and equality. Every decision had been guided by experience and foresight. Humans had learned that strength was not just in weapons, but in knowledge, discipline, and unity. They had built a civilization that could endure threats, solve problems, and adapt to challenges no one else could imagine. And now, the rest of the galaxy would see what they had, accomplished in centuries of quiet work. The first contact was surprisingly simple. The humans requested only that the Council acknowledge their presence and listen. They did not demand tribute, territory, or power. Instead, they sought recognition and the opportunity to participate in galactic affairs on equal terms. Yet even this calm request was shocking to many council members. They had forgotten what it meant to face a species that had been underestimated for so long as days passed. The humans demonstrated their capabilities subtly but unmistakably. Their ships moved with perfect coordination. Their technology adapted instantly to any obstacle, and their problem-solving skills were unmatched. Slowly, the Council began to realize the truth. These humans were not merely survivors. They were a civilization that had learned from every challenge, that had turned adversity into strength, and that had built a world capable of remarkable achievements. By the time formal meetings began, the Council was both impressed and cautious. Humans had arrived quietly, without fanfare, and yet their presence alone changed the dynamics of galactic politics. Species that had once ignored Earth now paid attention. Species that had once underestimated humans now questioned everything they thought they knew. The galaxy had been forced to reconsider the balance of power, and it had only just begun. The humans themselves remained composed. They did not gloat or boast. They did not act out of anger or desire for dominance. They had endured betrayal, isolation, and neglect, and they had emerged stronger because of it, not despite it. Every action, every word, every movement demonstrated a species that had learned patience, strategy, and unity. They had come not for war, but for presence, and their quiet strength spoke louder than any threat ever could. The first part of humanity's return had ended with shock, curiosity, and a growing sense of anticipation. The Council now faced a new reality. Earth was back, stronger than anyone expected, and the galaxy would never see it the same way again. The humans' return was not merely about survival. It was a statement, a demonstration of the power of perseverance, unity, and intelligence. No one in the Council could ignore the humans any longer. For centuries, Earth had been absent, silent, and underestimated. Now it had returned, and the ripple of its presence would grow larger with every passing moment. The galaxy had witnessed the first sign of humanity's reemergence, and the true story of Earth's strength was only beginning. As humans settled into the outer chambers of the Galactic Council, the air was tense. Many species looked at them with a mixture of curiosity, fear, and disbelief. The humans spoke calmly, but there was an unmistakable weight in every word. They had returned not just as visitors, but as witnesses to a long-forgotten past, one that some council members would have preferred, remained buried. When humans requested access to old exploration records, the council was hesitant. These records were considered confidential, hidden behind layers of bureaucracy. Many species did not want to remember the early encounters with Earth, especially the attack on the first human explorers. Some thought it was better to leave history buried, assuming that humans had long been erased from memory. But humans were patient. They did not shout or demand. They waited, letting their presence alone speak for their power and resolve. Slowly, the records were opened. Files that had not seen light for centuries were projected before the council. The first explorers, young humans who had traveled into space with nothing but hope and curiosity, were shown in holographic images. Their journey had been peaceful and diplomatic at first. They had reached out with greetings, gifts of knowledge, and attempts to communicate. But instead of friendship, they were met with ambush. Ships appeared from the shadows, weapons fired without warning, and the humans were forced to flee or perish. The older council members shifted uneasily. Some remembered the incident in faint detail, though the official records had long erased the truth. The younger members had never even heard of it. As the humans reviewed the files, they spoke softly, without anger, without accusation. Yet their calmness made the room tense. It was clear they already knew everything, the planning, the betrayal, and the names of those involved. They did not need to shout. Their presence and the knowledge they carried were enough. The council watched in silence as the humans laid out the evidence. It was meticulous, precise, and undeniable. Every detail of the ambush was recorded. Who had led the attack, what orders were given, and how attempts had been made to hide it afterward. The humans had access to archives the council thought were lost, as if they had anticipated every attempt to cover the truth. Some council members felt panic rising within them. They had underestimated humans before, and now it was happening again. These were not naive survivors. They were a civilization that had turned betrayal into preparation, silence into strength. Humans had waited, observed, and planned, and now the galaxy was confronted with the results of their patience. Yet the humans did not demand revenge, at least not in the way anyone expected. They did not call for punishment or destruction. Instead, they simply presented the truth. They showed the council the mistakes of the past, the hidden betrayals, and the evidence of who had tried to manipulate history. The calmness in their tone contrasted sharply with the gravity of what they revealed. Every word was measured, deliberate, and full of authority. The council members who had once supported the ambush grew defensive. Some tried to deny, some tried to minimize the events, and others argued that humans were exaggerating. But the humans were patient. They did not interrupt or shout. They let the evidence speak for itself. Slowly, one by one, even the deniers began to realize they could not escape the truth. The humans had anticipated their tactics, their excuses, and even their denials. Nothing could hide what had happened. Meanwhile, the younger council members watched with awe. They had never seen a species so resilient, so composed, and so capable of commanding respect without a single weapon fired. Humans had faced betrayal, erasure, and abandonment, and yet here they were calm, precise, and in complete control. Their quiet strength was far more intimidating than any fleet of warships. The humans explained why they had waited so long to return. They had not sought revenge immediately because they had needed time to grow, to prepare, and to ensure that when they re-entered the galaxy, they would do so as equals. Their silence had not been weakness. It had been strategy. Every technological advancement, every societal improvement, every effort to strengthen Earth had been part of a long-term plan. As the records continued to unfold, the council realized that humanity's return was more than a simple comeback. It was a demonstration of endurance, intelligence, and foresight. The humans had not only survived centuries of neglect and betrayal, they had turned that adversity into power. And now, they were here to make sure the galaxy understood that power. Some members tried to argue that humans could not be trusted, that their calm demeanor hid hidden motives. But the evidence was too clear. The humans had waited for centuries, yet they carried no anger in their presentation. Their revenge, if it could be called that, was in their preparedness and in the way they forced the council to confront the truth. They had not sought destruction, only acknowledgement and justice. In the quiet of the council chambers, a new understanding began to take shape. Humans were not just a species that had survived. They were a species that had learned from betrayal, that had turned silence into strategy, and that had become stronger because of it. The older council members, who had once underestimated Earth, now felt a mix of fear, respect, and regret. The younger members were inspired, recognizing that this species could change the very rules of galactic interaction by the end of the first full day of revelations. It was clear that the Council had underestimated humans once again. The room was no longer filled with doubt about their presence. It was filled with the realization that humans were a force shaped by history, patience, and intelligence. They had returned not to threaten or conquer, but to ensure that their story was known, that their experience was recognized, and that the galaxy could no longer ignore them. The humans' calm authority and meticulous presentation had done what centuries of absence could not. They had turned the tables without raising a weapon, without a single act of aggression. Their revenge was subtle, yet devastating. It forced the Council to confront the truth, acknowledge the past, and respect a species they had long underestimated. As the humans prepared to leave the chamber for the evening, a quiet tension remained. The council members were left to reflect on what they had witnessed. The humans had proven that patience, preparation, and truth could be more powerful than any fleet or weapon. Earth was no longer a minor player in galactic affairs. The galaxy had been warmed, not by threats, but by the quiet, undeniable presence of a species that had endured betrayal and emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined. And so, Part 3 closed with the Council facing a reality it had long ignored. Humans were not simply back, they were unstoppable in their own way. The galaxy had underestimated them once, and it would not make the same mistake again. While the Galactic Council was still processing the revelations of the past, Earth's story continued to unfold, but this part of the story was largely invisible to the galaxy. For centuries, humans had prepared quietly, building strength without fanfare, refining their skills, and mastering technology that the Council had never imagined. Their silence had been deliberate, a way to survive and grow without interference. What the galaxy saw now was only the tip of what had been achieved in secret. Beneath the surface, humans had transformed their planet into a fortress of knowledge and resilience. Cities were no longer just places to live. They were centers of learning, innovation, and efficiency. Every community contributed to the greater good, sharing knowledge, resources, and skills. There was no waste, no unnecessary competition, only cooperation. Humans had learned that their survival depended not on conflict, but on unity, and they had applied that lesson on a global scale. Technology, too, had advanced beyond what anyone could imagine. Humans had developed propulsion systems that allowed them to travel vast distances in space within days rather than years. They had built energy shields, artificial intelligence, and sensors that could detect threats long before they arrived. Yet all of this was done with subtlety and precision. Humans did not build to intimidate. They built to endure, to protect, and to adapt. Their ships were fast, efficient, and capable of handling any challenge the galaxy might throw at them. At the same time, humans had strengthened themselves in other ways. They had trained their minds and bodies to respond quickly to danger, to think critically in complex situations, and to work together seamlessly. Education was universal, but it was more than academics. It was preparation for life, for unexpected crises, and for challenges that might come from beyond their planet. Every human learned not only skills, but also responsibility, empathy, and strategic thinking. This preparation was not just about technology or education. Humans had developed systems for leadership and decision-making that were flexible yet resilient. They learned to listen to reason, to weigh evidence, and to make choices that benefited the collective rather than individuals. This careful planning allowed them to avoid the mistakes that had plagued other civilizations, mistakes that often led to war, corruption, or collapse. Humans understood that true power came from strength combined with wisdom, patience, and foresight. Even the natural world was carefully protected. Humans understood that their survival depended on balance. They had rebuilt ecosystems, preserved resources, and learned to harness energy without destroying it. Their planet became a model of sustainable development, a testament to what a civilization could achieve when it worked together rather than against itself. These efforts were invisible to the galaxy, but they formed the foundation for the human strength and resilience. Humans had also observed the galaxy quietly. They studied other civilizations, their strategies, technologies, and mistakes. They learned how conflicts started, how diplomacy succeeded, and how deception could shape outcomes. They were patient in their observations, taking centuries to understand the patterns of interstellar politics and power. They never rushed, never acted impulsively. Everything they did was calculated, every decision informed by centuries of careful study. And now, after centuries of preparation, the humans were ready to re-enter the wider galaxy. They did not rush in as conquerors or aggressors. Instead, they moved with precision and discipline, confident in their abilities and aware of the strengths and weaknesses of others. Their ships traveled in formations designed for efficiency, communication, and safety. Every crew member knew their role perfectly, and every system worked in harmony. It was a display of coordination and mastery that left even the most advanced civilizations astonished. Yet the humans' greatest strength was not in their machines or technology. It was in their unity and resilience. They had survived centuries of isolation, betrayal, and threats that could have destroyed a lesser species. They had emerged stronger not by seeking revenge, but by learning, growing, and preparing. That quiet determination gave them a presence far more powerful than fleets or weapons ever could, even when small. Crises occurred: rogue asteroids, natural disasters, or unexpected technical failures. Humans responded calmly and decisively. Every challenge became a lesson, every obstacle an opportunity to improve. This combination of patience, intelligence, and adaptability was what made them truly formidable. The galaxy might see only their ships and technology, but their strength was rooted in their culture, their unity, and their enduring spirit. As the humans prepared for their next steps, they remained aware of the Council's watchful eyes. The Council had begun to understand the depth of human resilience, but they could not yet grasp the full scope of Earth's preparation. Humans allowed them to observe enough to be impressed, but not enough to understand the true scale of their capabilities. It was a calculated reveal, designed to establish presence without provoking fear unnecessarily. And so, Part 4 of the story highlighted a truth that few in the galaxy could fully appreciate. Earth had been preparing quietly for centuries, building strength in ways that could not be measured by fleets, weapons, or raw power. Humans had learned that true resilience came from preparation, unity, and wisdom. Their return to the galaxy was not impulsive or emotional. It was the result of centuries of careful planning, observation, and strategic growth. When the humans finally made their presence fully known, it would not be through violence or chaos, but through quiet demonstration of their capabilities. Their ships, their technology, and their coordinated efforts would speak louder than any words. Yet the most powerful message of all would be that humans had survived, endured, and grown stronger despite centuries of neglect and betrayal. The galaxy would soon realize that the humans' silence was never weakness. It was a shield, a preparation, and a warning. Those who had underestimated Earth before would now have to recognize that true strength was not always visible, and that preparation, patience, and unity could create a force far greater than any weapon. Part 4 closed with the humans poised on the edge of the galaxy, ready to reveal the full scope of their preparation. The Council watched, curious and uneasy. The galaxy had not yet seen the full power of Earth, and when it did, everything would change. Humanity's quiet strength was a reminder that even a species once underestimated could rise to challenge the expectations of the entire cosmos. The Galactic Council had begun to understand the weight of humanity's return. What the humans had revealed about the past was more than just history. It was a mirror reflecting the Council's own mistakes. The attack on Earth's first explorers, once buried and forgotten, now lay bare for all to see. Those responsible felt exposed, vulnerable, and uncertain. And yet, the humans did not come demanding vengeance or punishment. Their approach was calm, deliberate, and commanding in its simplicity. As the council members debated, the humans remained composed. They did not raise their voices, they did not threaten, and they did not act impulsively. Their quiet authority spoke louder than any weapon. They had come to show that they had survived betrayal, grown stronger, and were now in a position where their patience and preparation gave them influence over a galaxy that had once dismissed them. The evidence they presented was irrefutable. Names, dates, orders, and documents were laid out clearly for the council. Every attempt at cover-up, every deceit, and every manipulation was documented. The council could not deny it. The humans had uncovered truths that had been hidden for centuries, truths that implicated even some of the most powerful and respected species in the galaxy. Panic spread quietly among the council. Those who had been directly involved in the ambush realized they could no longer hide behind bureaucracy or politics. Their past actions were now public, undeniable, and in front of a species that had survived against all odds. The humans' calm demeanor made the situation even more unsettling. They did not lash out or seek punishment. They simply revealed the truth. And that simple act of exposure was more powerful than any attack. Some council members attempted to deflect blame, suggesting that the humans had exaggerated the events, or that circumstances had been misunderstood. But the humans responded with facts, data, and evidence that could not be contested. Every denial, every excuse, was met with calm clarity. Humans had studied the galaxy, observed its politics, and anticipated such reactions. They were prepared for the Council's defenses, and they handled each one with patience and precision. As the day progressed, the full impact of humanity's return became clear. The Council had underestimated Earth once, and now they faced a species that had turned their underestimation into an advantage. Humans had not sought revenge in the traditional sense. They had not destroyed planets, attacked fleets, or demanded conquest. Instead, their revenge was in the quiet, undeniable display of capability and truth. It was a methodical demonstration of their strength and intelligence, forcing the Council to confront its past mistakes and acknowledge the humans' rightful place in the galaxy. The Council began to feel the weight of their own actions. Some members were ashamed, others fearful. The humans' patience and composure highlighted the failures of those who had acted out of fear, jealousy, or arrogance centuries ago. And yet, despite the Council's unease, the humans did not escalate. They did not exploit weakness, but instead allowed the truth itself to speak for them. Their restraint was intentional, demonstrating that their strength was not measured in aggression, but in wisdom, unity, and preparation. Meanwhile, the humans observed the Council carefully. They noticed who tried to evade responsibility, who attempted to rationalize the past, and who showed genuine understanding of the mistakes that had been made. They were not there to destroy, but to correct, to influence, and to ensure that the galaxy learned from the errors of history. Their calm presence forced the Council to reevaluate not just their actions toward Earth, but the way they approached governance, diplomacy, and justice. The humans' approach was subtle, but incredibly effective. By remaining composed, presenting undeniable facts, and refusing to act out of anger, they commanded attention and respect. Their quiet strategy was a reminder that true power often comes not from immediate action, but from preparation, intelligence, and the ability to endure adversity. The Council could see that any attempt to oppose or ignore humans now would be disastrous. As the hours passed, discussions shifted from denial to reflection. Council members debated not only what had happened in the past, but what could be done to prevent such betrayals in the future. Humans encouraged transparency, fairness, and accountability, emphasizing that the galaxy needed rules that ensured justice for all species, not just the powerful. Their message was clear: revenge was unnecessary. When wisdom and preparation could achieve lasting change, some members of the Council, who had previously dismissed Earth as insignificant, began to respect the humans in ways they had never anticipated. They saw the intelligence, patience, and discipline that had allowed Earth to survive and thrive in isolation. They realized that underestimating a species capable of such endurance and strategic planning had been a grave error. The humans were not simply survivors. They were a model of resilience, ingenuity, and moral clarity. By the end of the first full day of negotiations and presentations, it was clear that the humans had achieved something remarkable. They had forced the Council to confront its own history, acknowledge its mistakes, and recognize the true capabilities of Earth. Without firing a single weapon or demanding power, humans had shifted the balance of influence across the galaxy. Their revenge was not destruction. It was the revelation of truth, the demonstration of preparation, and the quiet assertion of authority that came from survival and wisdom. The Council was left in a state of awe and unease. The humans had proven that their silence was not weakness, their patience was not passivity, and their endurance was not mere luck. They had built a civilization capable of challenging the assumptions of an entire galaxy, not through conquest, but through intelligence, unity, and foresight. And so, Part 5 concluded with the Galactic Council facing a new reality. Humans were no longer a species to underestimate. They had survived betrayal, isolation, and erasure, and they had returned not with anger, but with calm authority. The galaxy had learned that true strength was not measured in weapons or fleets, but in preparation, patience, and moral clarity. The humans' quiet demonstration of power had changed everything, and the Council knew that the next steps would require careful consideration. For the first time in centuries, the Council recognized that the galaxy would never view Earth in the same way again. Humanity's return had forced reflection, respect, and above all, a new understanding of what it meant to be a civilization capable of enduring and thriving against impossible odds. The Galactic Council sat in quiet tension as the humans prepared to present their final message. The room was filled with curiosity, apprehension, and a touch of fear. For centuries, many had underestimated Earth, thinking the humans were weak, divided, or unprepared. Now, those assumptions were shattered. The humans were calm, confident, and deliberate in every action. They did not need to raise their voices or display their weapons. Their presence alone commanded respect. Humans began by acknowledging the Council's mistakes. They did not accuse with anger, nor did they shout. Instead, they spoke clearly, calmly, and with authority. They reminded the Council of the betrayal that had occurred centuries ago, the ambush on Earth's first explorers, and the attempts to erase the truth. The Council members who had hoped the past would remain buried realized that it was impossible to hide from humans who had observed, learned, and prepared for centuries. Yet the humans' tone was not vengeful. They did not demand punishment, territory, or wealth. Their message was far more profound. They emphasized fairness, justice, and responsibility. They wanted the Council to understand that true strength lay not in deception or aggression, but in knowledge, unity, and ethical action. Humans were demonstrating a type of power that was measured not in fleets or weapons, but in wisdom, patience, and moral clarity. The Council members listened carefully. realizing that the humans had been preparing for this moment for centuries. Every step, every plan, every advance in technology and society had been aimed not at conquest, but at ensuring that Earth could survive, endure, and assert its rightful place in the galaxy. Humans had waited for the right moment to return, and that moment was now dot. Then came the most surprising part of the humans' demonstration. They did not threaten, attack, or attempt to dominate. Instead, they presented a plan for a new, fairer galactic council, one that would prevent the mistakes of the past from repeating. They proposed transparency in decision-making, equal representation for all civilizations, and strict rules against aggression and secrecy. Humans showed the council that revenge was not about destruction. It was about creating systems that would ensure justice and prevent future betrayals. Some council members were stunned. They had expected anger, punishment, or at least demands for compensation. Instead, humans offered guidance, reform, and wisdom. Their approach was revolutionary. By refusing to seek vengeance in the traditional sense, they had demonstrated a type of strength that was far more lasting and impactful than any weapon could provide. Humans also emphasized the value of cooperation. They pointed out that the galaxy could only thrive if species worked together, respected one another, and learned from history. Their vision was not limited to Earth or to a single species. It encompassed every civilization, every world, and every life form. By sharing this vision, humans forced the Council to recognize that the survival and success of the galaxy depended on fairness, unity, and shared responsibility. The older Council members, who had long remembered the betrayal of Earth's explorers, felt a mix of awe, regret, and humility. The humans had survived impossible odds, yet they did not wield their strength to punish or dominate. Instead, they used it to teach, guide, and inspire. Their calm authority and moral clarity were far more formidable than any fleet, weapon, or political maneuver. Younger council members, who had never witnessed the full history of Earth, were inspired. They realized that humans represented the potential of any species to endure, adapt, and emerge stronger from adversity. Earth's return was a lesson in patience, wisdom, and ethical leadership. The galaxy could not ignore it, and it would not as discussions continued. The humans demonstrated their plans with precision. They showed how reforms could prevent corruption, ensure fairness, and protect weaker civilizations. They highlighted the dangers of secrecy, the consequences of arrogance, and the importance of accountability. Every proposal was backed by evidence, reason, and foresight. The Council could see that these were not mere suggestions. They were strategies designed to strengthen the entire galaxy. Some members tried to resist, fearing loss of power or influence. Others argued about logistics and feasibility. But the humans remained composed. They did not attack, argue, or coerce. They simply demonstrated that fairness and preparation could achieve far more than aggression or secrecy ever could. The power of humanity lay in their ability to endure, observe, and act with wisdom rather than emotion. By the end of the day, it was clear that Earth's return had fundamentally changed the Galactic Council. The humans' approach to revenge was unexpected, revolutionary, and inspiring. They had proven that true strength is not measured by force, but by the ability to survive, grow, and transform challenges into opportunities. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and now it had learned a lesson it would never forget. The humans did not demand recognition, but the Council could not help but give it. Their calm authority, strategic foresight, and moral clarity had reshaped interstellar politics. Species that had once dismissed Earth now understood the power of unity, preparation, and ethical strength. Humans had returned not to destroy, but to guide and influence the galaxy in a way that ensured fairness, justice, and lasting peace. And so, the story of Earth's fierce revenge reached its climax. It was not destruction, nor was it aggression. It was the quiet, deliberate, and profound demonstration of a species that had endured betrayal, isolation, and neglect, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than anyone could have imagined. Humans had shown that patience, preparation, and ethical action could achieve what fleets, weapons, and intimidation never could dot. As the humans departed from the council chambers, they left behind more than evidence or proposals. They left a legacy of resilience, intelligence, and moral strength. The galaxy had learned that underestimating a species that survives against all odds can be the gravest mistake of all. Earth had returned, not as a threat, but as a beacon, a reminder that strength and wisdom are inseparable, and that true revenge can be measured not in destruction, but in the enduring impact one leaves on the world. With that, the humans returned to their home planet, their mission complete. The Galactic Council would never forget their lessons, and the galaxy would never view Earth the same way again. Humanity had proven that it could endure, adapt, and rise above adversity. The quiet power of preparation, patience, and unity had reshaped the galaxy forever, and the story of Earth's fierce, unexpected, and ethical revenge would be remembered for generations to come.